sorry about that confusion. Good morning, everybody. Um, so my name is Kasha Griva. I am the Stormwater Committee Chair for Lemoyne Borough and also a member of um, Lemoyne Borough Council. So, okay, here's Lemoyne Borough at a glance. We were incorporated as a borough in 1905. We are 1.61 square miles of land, approximately 4,500 residents, a little over 2,100 households with 19.88 miles of borough roads within that 1.61 square miles and 5.58 miles of state roads. We have two watersheds. One flows directly into the Susquehanna and one flows into an unnamed tributary. We have 32,400 linear feet of stormwater pipes, which is around 6.2 miles, 200 inlets, 20 manholes, 40 end walls. Our stormwater management plan goals are to maintain the stormwater assets of the borough in a financially responsible manner, remain conscious of preserving the natural resources of our community, reduce localized flooding issues, meet requirements for regulatory compliance and pollution reduction, stormwater infrastructure construction, maintenance, and repair, slow the rate of runoff, which is a huge issue in our community, filter out harmful pollutants before they drain into our waterways. And before we came to having a stormwater fee, the objective for the potential of our fee is to raise the funds necessary to complete ongoing work required by our NPDES MS4 permit, increase accountability to decrease pollutants, runoff, and flooding, place these funds in a dedicated fund and use them exclusively to reduce toxins and contaminants in our water on the streets, construct and maintain stormwater pollution control systems, educate the public, pay for MS4 related staff activities and salaries, pay our annual DEP fees and our 5-year permit fees. Prior to enacting the fee, Lemoyne Borough was spending a little over $100,000 annually on stormwater costs, but we took that money out of the general fund, so that those funds were not dedicated at that time; they were just transferred over. And then with our permit, the cost of new programs and plans really jumped in. Over the last few years, they began to far exceed our prior expenditures. Additional use of tax revenue could require, taking money from other programs like our pool, our police services, our street repairs. Some of the challenges in our community was created as a borough in 1905, which means that it was built right around the railroad boom. So one of our big concerns is transportation, flooding of our transportation networks, potential for damage to property, erosion of local tributaries, the introduction of pollution into our draining systems, and ultimately our local bodies of water, sinkholes. Lemoyne, what I found out after I ran for council is that Lemoyne is actually built on a system of caves that interlocks in with Indian Echo Caverns. But, there is limestone underneath our town and a lot of sinkholes. So that makes all of our construction projects extremely challenging or unique at times. We have aging infrastructure. Pennsylvania American Water just came into town over the last year and spent $1.5 million in upgrades on 2 streets alone. Many of our pipes for water alone hadn't been touched in 50, 60 years. So we have some old infrastructure that needs replacing for all of our services. We did not have dedicated stormwater funds. One of the really unique challenges of Lemoyne is our varying elevations and slope terrain throughout the borough. As you can see in this picture, this is just one of our areas, but we have extremely sloped areas, many different neighborhoods and many different elevations. So that creates a lot of downhill flooding to other locations. And we'll talk about that more a little bit later. One of our challenges too is that we do have We have a couple condominium communities that had existing stormwater basins, but they were from the 1980s and 1990s. And also, some large corporations had stormwater basins, but they did not, all they do is control the rate of flow. They do not correct or control the pollutants or sediment. So perception, it was a huge challenge with this. Another one of our challenges was the high cost of other utilities in Lemoyne. We own our own sewer company, and comparatively speaking, our sewer rates are somewhat higher than other boroughs and towns. In the long run, because we actually just, I think, talked about this with Ellen, we just upgraded our sewer facilities about 10 years ago. So over the long run, we will be able to reduce those costs, but right now it is higher than other communities. And one of the big challenges is, should we sell or should we continue to hang on to this entity? At this point, we can look and see that in 5 to 10 years, we'll be able to reduce costs for our sewer, whereas in our other neighboring communities, they will actually be raising costs consistently, who have been purchased by private water suppliers. We have a limited tax base because we live in a small town. So we have, with 2,100 households, there's only over 1,000 households, that have a sewer stormwater bill, and then several businesses. We have another challenge is a small number of staff members. So we only have one staff member who is dedicated to MS4, and a lot of their time is spent out in the wild, taking care of our storm grates, building bioswales, doing the paperwork for this, testing water, that kind of. So we don't have any dedicated staff in the office to handle all of the other things that come with the MS4 work. One of the biggest challenges that we faced when talking to our residents and our businesses was the lack of understanding of local water quality deficiencies. So there was a real lack of, or disconnect, I should say. There was a real disconnect between, we all know that the Susquehanna River is extremely polluted and dirty just by looking at it. We all know that the water quality is terrible. There are several times over the summer that we see those alerts to not get in the water, to not eat the fish. We see when it floods that it turns, brown, and all of that sediment is coming from upstream. But there really is sort of a disconnect between our own personal activities and how that also connects to our greater water bodies. Another challenge that we had is in our community in particular, there was a perception that the only reason we're doing this work is to benefit the Chesapeake Bay. So again, there's sort of that disconnect, which, we really tried to correct with public education forums. How, correcting the water quality here and taking these steps to reduce pollution before it hits can benefit ourselves and our towns. So at the turn of the century, our neighborhoods were really built here in Lemoyne. They came up very quickly. It brought many homes and structures with narrow lots, proportionally large homes, and very little yard or green space. And then mid-century development, which you can see here, it's been updated since the mid-century. Excuse me. However, mid-century development in our town brought a boom of new business structures surrounded by seas of pavement. So, in the 1950s and 60s, we saw the boom of shopping plazas in our town. And with those shopping plazas have very large paved areas where for many years there was absolutely no greenery. And now we are trying to correct that with retrofitting in areas when we can. We have very few undeveloped parcels of land that remain in the borough. We are, because our town is old and small, there are only a few lots left. And one of our unique challenges is the bottleneck. Many of you, I'm sure, have driven from the east shore to the west shore or vice versa using the Market Street Bridge and driven through that bottleneck in Lemoyne, that windy road. Our bottleneck actually experiences historic flooding very often when the Susquehanna River rises. And then all year long, the unique winding structure of the road causes trash, debris, and pollutants to puddle in certain areas around the bottleneck. So we decided, I was elected in early 2018, and we decided that stormwater was going to become a priority in our town. So what we did was, starting in November 2018 and going through February 2019, we hosted a series of public meetings, often 2 to 3 times per month, where what we did was we wanted to gather together and get as many people who were for it, people who were opposed to it, how people would be impacted by it. And the first several sessions were just information gathering, getting to understand what do people want in our community, what do they want with stormwater. And then after that, we were able to sort of figure out the goals for our stormwater program and hone in on how we can make those happen with dedicated funds. So at the end of the process, we did hold 2 public education meetings, one for residential properties and one for owners of businesses or commercial properties. We sent educational pamphlets to every parcel in the borough after this whole process was over, but before the fee was enacted. And those educational pamphlets had their particular land parcel information, and an estimated monthly fee so that they could come to the borough. They could either come to our public meetings or talk to us at any other time to discuss the fee and how, it would impact their property and how much exactly it would cost per month. So here were some of the options that were discussed with the committee, the Stormwater Committee, our borough staff, our borough engineer, and then interested residents and business owners. So a review of our MS4 permit requirements and an explanation of how this works. The fact that these permit requirements and the work that goes along with it, it is certainly the right thing to do for our town and for our people. But these activities are mandated by state and federal governments, but local governments are obligated to pay for those. We created a 5-year plan for stormwater projects and budgets. We actually when everybody went around town individually and came together and talked about where are the top 10 areas where flooding or erosion or other issues are occurring, and how can we implement a plan to fix those issues. We discussed over and over again multiple options for commercial and residential fee structures so that we could determine the most fair and effective way to cover costs. Billing methods and procedures, legal mechanisms for non-payment, the importance of keeping and tracking the use of our fees in a separate dedicated fund, the increased amount of grant opportunities available to municipalities when you have dedicated stormwater revenue, however you choose to do that. Methods to monitoring water discharge quality, the pros and cons of setting up an authority, creating a tax, or utilizing a fee. We had a lot of help on this, utilizing the skills and understanding of our borough solicitor and borough engineer to sort of guide us through this process. One of the big things that we talked about is the importance of the name of the fee and the review of viable options. When we first started discussing this in this town, the term rain tax was actually very prevalent when talking about a stormwater fee, and there was a perception that municipalities are taxing our citizens for rainfall. So we really wanted to make sure that the way we worded this fee and the way that we worded our education and communication around this really reflected the importance of the pollution reduction and not get sucked into that type of verbiage. We also did verbiage reviews of the ordinance, fee resolution, website documentation, and mailing. So what we did is the community partners that were willing to sit with us and go through this whole process really helped us sculpt the way that we communicate this to everybody else. We talked about a legal process for credits, application for credits, appeals, and procedures for handling appeals, whether or not we would offer credits or not. And we also discussed non-single family residences. How do we handle apartments, condominiums, and duplexes? So these were all the issues that came up in our public education and outreach sessions. And then at the end of all of this, the Stormwater Committee made recommendations and Borough Council then adopted the following. So we decided to name it a stormwater assessment fee, sort of to give the, understanding that like a sewer fee or a tax collection fee or a water usage fee, this is really a type of utility. So we are calling it a stormwater assessment fee, which will then be used to rehabilitate our waterways. Rather than focusing on the negative words like pollution or rain tax and those types of things, again, we wanted to allow people to understand that it is rehabilitating. So, and then we decided not to enact an authority or a tax. The reason why we decided not to enact a tax was because of the large number of nonprofits here in Lemoyne. So we have 4 major churches, and then we also have dozens and dozens of nonprofits, over 100, I think, that do not actually pay taxes. So if we would assess a tax, then those same entities that do not pay taxes would not contribute to the stormwater fee. And especially with our churches and other large parcels that are nonprofits, they actually do contribute significantly at times to that stormwater runoff with the amount of impervious land. We decided not to enact an authority. That was one of the biggest decisions that our group had to make. Are we going to? And we decided not to go with an authority, because with an authority, we would have to appoint a board and then stockpile large sums of money to pay up stormwater more quickly. And because we have an authority with the sewer committee, at this point, we wanted to make sure that the stormwater fee was as affordable and manageable for our residents as possible, because our sewer fees are higher. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of zip through this so we can get to how we came to this. Okay, so we decided that our PRP is based on total land area rather than impervious area. So we decided to, for simplification purposes, our stormwater assessment fee is based on total land area of each parcel of property, not impervious surfaces. One of the main reasons why we chose to go this direction is because we do have a small staff and we do not have anyone dedicated to going out and measuring your property or utilizing even the tools available online to sit and identify every single parcel and do those measurements. Because again, we only have one dedicated staff member and they are out in the field all day. The stormwater assessment fees, we decided instead of sending out a separate billing for them, in order to save money, we actually bill them as a separate line item on our monthly sewer bill. So we're not sending out additional postage. We're not sending out, handling that billing separately and needing an additional admin or accountant to handle that. It all comes in as one every month. We decided that partial payments will be credited first to stormwater and second to sewer. If your sewer bill is late for an extended period of time, Pennsylvania American Water may shut off your water service for non-payment. But right now during COVID, we are not doing that for stormwater or sewer. Lemoyne is authorized to establish a fee based on the Pennsylvania Borough Code and a special improvement district within the borough. So, um, each borough, each township is unique. Definitely consult your borough solicitor to determine what's best for your municipality. To reduce the upfront cost of the fee to the property owner, we decided not to offer credits for the first 2 years of implementation to the fee, um, and that we will go back in every 2-year period to determine the financial feasibility of that, and if we can do that. Another reason for that is if we would offer credits, we would need to have more staff. So we would need to have staff to manage the credit requests. We would need to have staff to go out to homes to assess whether those credits are worthy of what the request is, to inspect the homeowners BMPs. And at this point in time, we don't have enough staff for that. And if we would offer credits right away and need to add additional staff to handle these requests, it would have significantly increased the amount that each parcel owner is paying. Condominiums and apartments were determined to be residential instead of commercial, charged by individual parcel, but a lump monthly sum to each homeowners association or property owner, and duplexes are considered residential also. All of the verbiage of our ordinances, resolutions, fees, and credit structures were reviewed and approved by our borough solicitor. Stormwater assessment fee information was provided on our website in multiple direct mailings, through our biannual newsletters, and on social media sites, and verbal notifications were provided at all of our borough council meetings. We adopted our stormwater policy on 3 ordinance, including the fee, on March 21st, 2019. So what we did in order to do that is we adopted a 5-year budget. We figured out exactly what plans we're going to do over the next 5 years and figured out what that would cost. And what we did is, you've probably heard of ERU. What we did is because our parcels are so small, we did an equivalent 1/10 of an acre unit. So we divided the total deeded acreage by 0.1, and each 1 ETU is $7.70 per month. We actually charge our single family, our residential customers do pay less than our commercial, which is one of the requests that came out of our sessions. So the residential parcels are adjusted 1/10 of a unit for billing. So our residents pay between $7.70 and $46.20 per month, between 1 acre or 1/10 of an acre to over 20 acres. And then our non-residential properties are charged based on calculating ETU without the adjusted scale. So our overall annual stormwater costs were distributed over the total number of ETUs to determine how to fiscally pay for this. Here are 2 quick examples. Residential, I'm going to go ahead and skip through these because the math is right there. And I know we only have a few minutes left. Keep in mind that while we were enacting the fee, these are just some tips to help you talk to your residents and business owners about why this is so important. The Susquehanna River Basin is actually one of the most flood-prone areas in the entire nation, and we contribute to that. And we now in Pennsylvania have over $200 million of stormwater flooding annually just in the Susquehanna River Basin. So $1 invested in pollution control saves $27 in water treatment. Okay, so I have some project examples here. Our rain gardens. This is a DEP photo at the farm show, the success story information. I'm just going to go ahead and flip through these. You can look through these at your leisure. We've recently done a stream bank restoration and dam removal. We received grant funding for both the rain gardens and the stream bank restoration and dam removal. Here is you can see there's a natural riparian buffer. cross veins in the rocks to direct the flow of water, a plunge pool to help reduce the velocity of it. And next, we are talking about doing a project at West Shore Farmers Market. This is a highly paved area. If you've ever been to Lemoyne, the West Shore Plaza, Hoover Plaza, the farmers market are, all highly desirable areas where we all congregate. But the water comes down from uphill and higher elevations, and it flows very heavily down here. And then it erodes actually all of our homes down at the end and our railroad banks. So we actually just found out that we applied for grants to cover this, but we did not receive the grant. So we are going to need to utilize more additional stormwater funds to handle this. One of our success stories, very quickly, PennDOT recently planned to resurface one of our main roads, which is Hummel Avenue. We had planned to put in additional storm sewer piping, but because of topographic constraints and the gas lines that were already there, it was very expensive. It was going to cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. I think it was between 150 and 200,000. So what we did instead is we put in the storm grate, but we put in an infiltration bed instead of the piping and created, a slow flow infiltration. And it saved us, that green infrastructure saved us over $100,000, reduced the overall volume of runoff, provides pollutant treatment, and creates a safer roadway for our drivers. And it works. So I'm going to go ahead. Here's just some points for thoughts about green infrastructure and getting your community engaged. I'm going to stop presenting here. Does anybody have any questions?
We do have time for one or two quick questions here.
Okay.
And if you would just unmute yourself and ask, that would be fine.
Oh, am I muted?
No, I'm the people in the audience are muted.
Okay.
Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you so much.
A lot of work in that.
It's been very interesting, and I am very passionate about stormwater here in our community. The more you research it, the more you understand how it really does. That last slide is all about how green infrastructure positively impacts your community. It saves money on your construction projects. It creates, increases your economic and mental health well-being. It does, these green infrastructure projects do so much. They increase property values. They do a lot for your community.
Griva, this is Brian Johnson. Hey, have you looked at impact that some of the stormwater work you're doing has had on your wastewater system? Has it reduced the inflow and infiltration? Do you see significant reduction? You don't have a combined system there, right? It's separate.
No,
so have you seen an impact?
We do not have a combined system. One of the things that we actually talked about, our systems are completely separate. They have always been, which is good. But one of the things that we talked about, because our sewer system, actually, we upgraded our plant about 15 years ago, I think. And we actually have extra capacity because at the time, whoever was on the board did not have good relationships with some of the communities that were our customers, and some of our communities actually piped their sewage to other communities instead, which was a real downfall. But what that does is it gives us, if we would ever have to treat our stormwater, we could easily redirect our pipes and separate our sewer system in half. So half of it could go towards treating stormwater if that ever becomes a mandate, and half of it could continue to go to sewer. But, having your own sewer system, when we did the upgrades, it was expensive, which is one of the major reasons why we wanted to keep the costs as low as possible.
I really hate to stop this discussion, but we're just about 2.5 minutes from the next session. So I think, Kasha, your contact information is available. If anyone has any follow-up questions to ask, these presentations will be available in about 2 weeks on the website. So if you want to copy some of those slides, there were some really good points, especially on that last one. You'll be able to do that. So we are going to have to end this session now. So hit the leave button, consult the agenda, and click on the link for the 8:55 session, and we'll go from there. So thanks again, Kasha. Great presentation.
Thank you so much. If anybody wants to contact me, please do. I'd be happy to help in any way I can. Thank you.